Hi everyone. Welcome to another conversation in our Luna Arcana YouTube channel series. I'm Rohini Walker. I'm the editor, creative director of Luna Arcana, and today I'm talking to Tim Chinnock. Tim is a long time high desert dweller. Tim and his partner have been a huge part of the community for a long time. And Tim is a multidisciplinary artist and a third generation pediatrician living and working in the California desert. And early in life, he chose to set aside his interest in visual art, thinking it was necessary to do that in order to pursue a medical career. But over the years, he's been increasingly unable to ignore the call of his artist heart. He's a songwriter, a recording musician, a photographer, and more recently, Tim has claimed his work in the hospital as part of his artistic practice, watching for creative openings for healing with families and especially mothers whose children are admitted to the hospital, focusing on themes of presence, agency, consent, and nonviolence. So we have a rich conversation ahead of us. Hi, Tim. Welcome.
Hi,
So
Rohini.
happy you're
Thanks.
here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Um, so let's just start off by this question I have, and I'm sure a lot of people will have. How do you do it all as a dad and as a husband and as a pediatrician and an artist and a person with a very rich creative life? And you play shows and you record music. And how do you do all the things without going mad?
Well, who says I'm not going mad?
Okay. Weave the
uh,
madness into it
yeah,
all.
yeah, and weaving madness into it all too. I don't know. I guess I've just always been just had a lot of energy for things, and I've always been interested in a lot of different things. I've always let I've kind of bounced from here and there. Like in high school, I did all the sports. If there was any sports available, I'll just go ahead and do them all. And yeah, it's just something I've um, but actually, I mean, I think the answer to that really is I'm probably actually starting to like really trim away the things that don't feel like as central to my soul. And yeah, in a way, I think in my life I've sort of like sent a broad net to catch the
Mm.
things that really landed. And like as I'm in my mid 40s now, I'm sort of like starting to kind of trim away at the things that maybe aren't as quite so close to my core.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think that trimming away is definitely, yeah, comes with time and discernment and age. And how do you find, because I know for my creative work and for the people that I kind of who are my clients who are creatives and stuff, really need solitude. How do you find some space and time for pockets of solitude in everything
Mm.
that you're doing?
Hmm. Well, I started meditation practice around like got really serious around 4 years
Mm.
ago, and so yeah, that has been like instrumental in my like getting better to know myself better, and like find the inner place of stillness where then light can sort of
Yeah.
come from rather
Yeah.
than being my idea that I make happen or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I can relate to that. I have the same, my meditation
Mm.
practice is core to everything that I do. And do you think, because the conversations that you and I have been having are specifically around your work as a pediatrician and the things you've been observing within the medical system, specifically around how mothers and women are treated, do you think that those observations, which come from a very thoughtful, very kind of very relational left brain place. Do you think that your meditation practice has kind of slowly guided you to see the larger context in which things are unfolding?
Mm. Yeah, I think. mm, well, I mean, there's a place of stillness, and this is a place that doesn't often get like really harnessed within the medical environment, in my experience, um, where like life has the answer for us,
Hmm.
and so I think what I see a lot of times is places in which, you know, people either by their own motivations or their own sort of like inability to tap in to like the human. And this is the thing, like with your work, like the embodied, like when I read your writing, like I wish that everybody would talk in the hospital like the way that you write, because I feel it's like I feel so like a wholeness like coming into view. um yeah, and so I think it's there's just so much trauma in the hospital environment, and really in our culture in general.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, our culture has been shifting, you know, in recent years to start to include these types of things. And so I think my observations like are in the culture at large, and I'm seeing what's happening, and like people speaking up, and I'm wanting that, you know, for the people in the hospital too. It's a very similar
Mhm.
movement to like say other underrepresented, you know, communities finally getting a voice, and
Yeah.
finally finding people who are like, okay, yeah, it's actually like these voices matter. In a way it's kind of backwards, but like patients are in a way somewhat like underrepresented in the hospital because they don't know the system, they don't know always what's going on, and they don't always have someone who's seeing their experience like from their perspective.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like what you've just named there, that wholeness, that absence of wholeness. I mean, like you said, it's absent in our culture at large, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, you're observing it from this the kind of microcosm of the hospital and the medical space, and
Mm-hmm.
especially with women who, you know, mothers, women, and that absence of wholeness, that absence of a holistic whole system perspective, like the human as a whole system, not just a body that's like
Right.
mechanically cut up into you know, this part, this part, this part. Um, and that I love what you're saying about that advocacy for patients. I mean, that's how our conversation around all this started.
Mm-hmm.
This advocacy for patients, for and specifically for women, which for me, when we first talked about this, was just like this is nobody, yes, nobody in the medical system, and especially a man, is not nobody's talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Within the mainstream kind of medical system. And that to me feels like such a necessary like sea change to start subverting this culture of trauma that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see like because I know that you're kind of like allowing this role of advocacy to slow, you know, just organically unfold for you in within your career. How
Mm-hmm.
is that? How are you kind of stewarding that into the world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess maybe I'll just share like the story where the light came on for me.
Yes, please.
In
Yeah.
terms of this, there was I was in the hospital taking care of a child with like pneumonia. I had just come on service, so like another team of doctors had been taking care of them. So it was the mom and the child, and the child had been getting worse. And so when I came in to the room, there was just something about the way in which the mom was like the way that she was in the space that had me like there was sort of like a door that opened
Mm,
for me to like, and my attention was actually drawn more toward her. um and it was just very simple, like this moment of like that sort of opening was there in her, I feel like. And then like my attention was sort of drawn that direction, and I asked a very simple question like, but how are you? Because like so much focus was on the child. And so in that moment something changed in her, and
mm.
it was like I don't know, she just was like there was a movement of energy that I can't quite explain. And like the next day the child was better, and they went home, and it's sort of like one of those kind of miraculous
Wow.
moments.
Yeah.
So that was a and that was like a moment where, because there's sort of an intuitive movement, and
Hmm.
it's a little bit vulnerable to talk about this, quite honestly, like in the medical community. And it's like,
I can imagine.
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like a little bit of fear coming up in me even talking about it, but it's like I'm so here for that. Um, because I do, I mean, and it's like, yes, the mother is so linked to the child. I mean, it's dad's fathers are too. It's like a different way though.
Yeah.
And so I guess it, it's sort of an answer to your question. It's like I had seen some possibilities in that way, but I hadn't ever like, and so with the way that she responded to sort of my attention, then like landed in my body, and it felt like a more embodied sense of how like a mother's intuition could really like land in the hospital environment. And
Mm.
so I keep like every with most of my other, now that I go around, I sort of am like looking for those opportunities because it's not always like not every mother is like ready for that moment. Not every doctor is ready to receive that moment. Not every child is ready for the mom, and like I think a lot of
Yeah, yeah,
things sort of
yeah.
lined up that experience happened. But so that in the way that I steward it, I also teach I teach learners. So I have like doctors in training and stuff. So I'll point out moments where those types of things happen. I will make sure that they see me like welcoming, say like a newborn, like a mother with a newborn who is scared for something for her baby, like
Hmm.
bring that in. That's love, like let's have that
Yeah.
here. And so yeah, it's more of like a direct patient interaction. I haven't really thought, or I'm not that interested, I don't think, in terms of like teaching this to bigger groups of people. But I think just being open and being like a space where that kind of thing can actually happen,
Hmm.
and then as more and more people maybe see the value of that in those environments, maybe things will shift.
Yeah. I mean, these small shifts that are actually really big shifts, but they're
Mm-hmm.
taking place in these small ways. And I really want to, I appreciate you speaking to this, the vulnerability, the fear that comes up. I mean, I feel the emotion of like when you described that scene with the mom and just asking how she is and just that, oh, like I'm also a human
Mm-hmm.
in a body
Mm-hmm.
with my own, and the child is co-regulates, like a young child is co-regulating with their mother's nervous system the most. I mean, like you
Mm-hmm.
say, also the fathers and primary caregivers. Um, but yeah, and of course, different, same gender families, all the different ways in which we have family units nowadays. But
Mm-hmm.
um, that co-regulation with that maternal nervous system, and
Mm-hmm.
that when that settles, and okay, yeah, we don't have like a direct correlative reason, like this is why the child got better, but just the fact that the mum's nervous system settled and the child started to improve is something
Mm-hmm.
to take note of.
Yeah. Well, and it puts in mind like what to me like what the actual like meaning of healing is. And I think that's something that's been sort of skewed like in the hospital environment. Like healing is I think for me like a way more complex beast or interplay, than just like, okay, you have an infection and I treat it with antibiotics, that's one type of bodily healing. But true like holistic healing may look a lot different than that.
Yeah, I mean, and the word healing comes, the roots of the word healing is from whole. So
Mm.
it again comes back to that sense of wholeness,
Mm-hmm.
coming back to that wholeness, that holistic, that whole systems. And just this, I feel like this shift is so like, because you said, you're kind of teaching the people in within your hospital space, and but you're not really feeling called, because I'm like, not that I'm trying to push you into anything. But you're not really, I'm
Yeah.
just curious. You're not really feeling called to kind of speak about it. I mean, I know we're having this conversation and it'll be on YouTube. But not really kind of called to uh teach it on a larger scale at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I've imagined like workshops at conferences,
Hmm.
and maybe, yeah, maybe someday that would be something that I would do. But like, I think there's just like, I have so much work, so much more work inside of myself to just like really like land in something that I feel is so authentic that maybe I'm just like not ready,
Hmm.
to take that step. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that the humility there that you're not just kind of steaming forward like, oh, I've seen this thing and now I'm gonna just that kind of that circumspection and like, okay, how much how am I embodied in this? How am I practicing these things? And how integrated am I in these ways? And the fact that you're asking yourself those questions shows that you are actually.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like and that would be the old way, would be to like, oh,
Mhm.
I've found the thing that's gonna make us great or something, and like
Mhm.
this like, okay, but then you're like, but then in a way it would be like sort of co-opting this like um how do I say it? Like it would just be that would be the old system in a way of if I was like, okay, I found the answer, I'm gonna tell everybody the answer. So in a way, I'm a bit allergic also,
Yeah, yeah, I feel that. Yeah.
but yeah, and it's just yeah.
Yeah,
um
so I feel like you're really being guided in this rather than
mhm.
like going, okay, this is my agenda for this. That you're
Yeah.
really kind of, like even just having this conversation. We talked about having this conversation like 2 years ago or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
it's finally happening. So it's like, there's no mad rush to like, but at the same time, just, the first time we talked about this and what really struck me was your this this role of advocacy
Hmm.
that you speak of, where you're talking to especially pregnant women who are at their most vulnerable within the medical system. And of course, they have their partners there supporting them, advocating for them, but their partners are not familiar with the medical system and the jargon and the ways in which people get corralled and coerced into certain things that may not be aligned for them. And one of the things that you were saying was this advocacy, and I made a note of this, like being this voice that's advocating for people, and especially mums and women, um, while holding them in their values
Hmm.
without negating the medical side of things and neglecting that and being, and being, being remiss in any of those places, but just also bringing in this, like, who is this person? What are their values? How did they want to move through this birthing process or this
Hmm.
mothering, parenting process?
Yeah, and I think that's like a key piece. I mean, in any interaction with any person, and it applies, to the hospital environment too. I mean, I guess I want to say also, like the birth of a child is just like massively complex, and the systems in which that we've sort of set up in order to support that process. Um, I don't want to discount the fact that OB doctors have seen a lot of really scary things, and like
Yeah,
and a lot of like tragic,
yeah.
we are talking life and death. I mean, just last week, I saw a really like unfortunate outcome, and so those things happen, and so but my what I think is important is that yes, we have that system set up for some certain outcome, but like there are certain values, if we're not coming from a place of shared values, then it's we're more likely to have like conflict.
Yeah, yeah, that share that and that understanding. It's like maybe I don't, as say if I was within the medical system, within, an OB, and I'm like, okay, this person wants to do it this way, and I'm just like, okay, look, this is going to really overcomplicate the process. So can we just not do that? That's I feel like that people bump up against that a lot, that it's like this is overcomplicating the processes within the hospital system.
Yeah.
That processes that are necessary and needed for a smooth running of a thing, but at the same time, they can't override the human
Mhm.
in question and their values. So how the processes and a person's values, a mother's values, can coexist.
Mhm. Um, Yeah, I'm brought to mind Jasmine Tomaso. She lives, do you know her? She has on her Facebook, she's been posting quite a lot about she had her first baby was born at home, and
Oh,
then her
okay.
second
I
baby
don't know her.
was born in the hospital. So
Okay.
yeah, she's also a high desert person who's been posting publicly about her experience. So
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
um I'm just like brought to mind, yeah, that just she came to mind because like right now we're sort of thinking about the hospital environment, for a birth.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But like the other option is to do it at home, and so that right, even right there, just making that decision to like step into the system, there's this whole host of things that occur, including all the power dynamics, um, and it's a sort of a protocolized environment. If you imagine
Yeah.
getting on a plane, you definitely want your pilot to be going down the checklist like this.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. And you want the
It,
person who's giving birth to your baby to be
you,
totally, yeah.
you want to be a checklist, but there are different ways to do that. There's a way in which to do that where you can be connected, and there's a way to do that where you can be disconnected. Um, and and I think a lot of people, if they come out with a poor experience, it's more the communication that's actually the issue.
hmm
Far less often do I find that the values were actually that different.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just more like the doctor didn't communicate well
Yeah. Or didn't
because
listen
or
well.
didn't listen, which is part of, yeah, which is a
Yeah.
super important part
Yeah.
of communication. Like
Yeah.
didn't hear what was important to the person,
Yeah.
or if they did, they didn't address it in a way that that person could hear,
hmm
because there's all sorts of medical jargon,
Yeah.
and doctors are really bad at speaking plain English. I
Yeah,
find
which
that
I can
so
understand.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, the nature of the profession. They're like immersed in that, and then someone's just asking like a really straight question, and they get just like jargonized answer.
Yeah, and it's kind of disconnected in a way that's like, kind of tragic, because the doctors want what's best for people, and the patients want what's best for themselves,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Um, and actually, I wanted to name that, I just said, and this is something we've talked about in the past, and I just noticed myself saying it. It's like, oh, the person who's going to give birth to the baby was like, well, the mother's giving birth to the baby, and everyone else
Yes.
is
I love that you caught that, because I was actually hoping that would come up. That's so amazing. Yeah. Like, yeah.
the
And
doctor's not giving birth to the
the
baby.
doctor is not giving birth to the baby, but that's how we speak. And like
Yeah.
and that sort of that those types of language, like languaging, are
hmm
happening constantly.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a perfect example where if you do like a home birth with a midwife, they're likely going to be saying, "I'm just here to support you."
Yeah.
But when you go into the hospital, there are so many other things happening that sometimes decisions are made in order to support the doctor. And I say sometimes, a lot of times.
Yeah.
The decisions are being made to support the doctor, and which is also supporting the hospital system, which is also providing care to the people to support them to have their babies. But yeah.
Yeah, that language part though is so important because that, I mean, that really sets the standard for how we process and make meaning, process the world and make meaning. So when language is disempowering in this way to the mother, to the parents, that just making the mother this passive bystander almost,
Mhm.
rather than the person who is birthing this child.
Right. Well, in the history of that, I was looking into it briefly. I'm not an expert on it, but like when we started this conversation, I was like, well, how is it that like we started delivering in the hospital? Because like 100 years ago, like that wasn't a thing.
hmm
But yeah, if you're interested in it, like look into the history of it was one particular doctor who had a bunch of scary experiences, and said and pathologized pregnancy, and
Oh wow.
somehow that like that idea was so like easy to grasp onto, that it sort of like pervaded the whole system, and like a whole system was then set up with pregnancy as like almost like an illness, and something that
Yeah.
like a woman needs to be relieved of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that has been that has been the I mean, that is changing now within more kind of holistic birthing spaces than which are mostly populated by women speaking from these roles of advocacy. Um, and whereas within the mainstream like medical system, it's still this like pregnancy pathologized, and that's interesting to know. I will look into that. That it's like,
Mhm.
okay, the hospital, and I just want to name here that we're not. This conversation is not about like, oh, hospital births bad, home births
Mm-mm.
good. It's not those
Mhm.
binaries at all. It's that because I'm so grateful that we have hospitals and birthing facilities and all of these things because things can go badly, badly wrong. And so I'm so grateful that those things exist and to normalize other ways, the original
Mhm.
ways in which women birthed. And of course, there were many more women who died in childbirth, all of these things, but that women were kind of they weren't marginalized in the process.
Mhm.
It was like there was a circle around the woman who was birthing.
Yeah, and I think what I get from you and like what I would wish is that we can actually blend the two
Yeah,
things
exactly.
more in a
Exactly.
more again a more like in a way that we get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, because we have the technology and all of those, and the science and the facilities and the expertise now, and how to bring that in service to
Mm-hmm.
the human
Mm-hmm.
and to the woman and to that the kind of complete mystery. Yeah, okay, we know the science of conceiving and pregnancy and all of these things, but it's also like a giant, amazing, miraculous, mysterious thing that's
Mm-hmm.
also taking place.
Right.
And to honor both.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we also have talked about is how the system, so the medical system, can start adapting and make so this is, segues into what we've talked about, how the medical system could start adapting and making space for more than just the science part, the
Mm-hmm.
clinical part. How do you
Yeah.
think that melding could kind of realistically start to incrementally happen?
Yeah, that's probably like a really big question.
Yeah.
And it's
And I don't expect any like neat and tidy answers for to that.
yeah, I think again, it's more just like um I think for a time there, people were sort of uh overutilizing the medical field. Like if anything would go wrong, people would be like, I need to talk to my doctor. And so they would get like a doctor answer. Um, and I think we're clearly moving away from that. And it's like the pendulum is swinging quite a lot, where I know a lot of families who are like, go to a doctor. There's no way I'm going to a doctor. Um, and so I if we could, just and this is where community comes in,
Yes.
if doctors could just be one piece of the community
Yeah.
for the care of your child or whoever in your family, and then you have your local healer and your chiropractor and your doula, your midwife. There's so many also other members of the team,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that if we could just work together as a
Yes.
team.
I mean, I feel like, I mean, I can even visualize that as like the doctor is one part of a larger ecosystem, a larger
Hmm.
community. And
Yeah.
that it's not so, and then it's again, then the agency comes back to the parent, the mother, um, to make the decision after they've spoken to the doctor, after they've spoken to the doula, after they've spoken to the acupuncturist and tuned into their own guidance, and then making the decision from there
Yeah.
rather than like you have to follow exactly what the doctor
Right.
said, because if you're not, then you are somehow causing harm.
Yeah. That's a world that I would love to see. And I think what happens is that people have these sort of unfortunate experiences, like where, so I mean, I've seen it, where a parent actually doesn't have the child's best interest in mind.
Yeah, exactly. There's those
And
things. Yeah, of
that
course.
that is a
Yeah,
thing, and it's actually
yeah,
on the doctor to identify
yes,
and handle that. And so, um, whatever. I also want to like obviously like I have empathy for doctors and like the position they're in too. Like it's it's clearly a complex undertaking to manage all of that. But where does the clear harm start,
Mm,
and the openness to other ways of addressing similar concerns?
yeah.
It's like there's no clear, like, this is obviously harmful to your baby, like, for
Yeah.
instance, right? Shaking a baby is clearly harmful to the baby and it's not okay, right? But like, not giving my baby vaccines, some doctors, I think, would put that closer to this clear harm, and other doctors would move it sort of further away. And so that's where
Mm-hmm.
this gray zone happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the way in which they communicate where they are is a big piece of people's experience about, how they've been treated in the medical system.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you named that. Like you said, the don't shake your baby physically, violently interacting with your child causes harm. We know that.
I think pretty
And
much everybody, most everybody,
so
nearly everybody would
in
agree.
this generation, I don't like previous generations of parenting, not so much, I would say,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah. So we know that the that's causes harm, don't do that. Whereas you're like, there's this gray area with the vaccines. And again, no one here is saying take them, don't take them.
Yeah.
This is about having that, being able to stay in that gray area where, I have friends who have vaccinated their children and I have friends who have not. And both children are, vaccinated children are healthy, non-vaccinated children are healthy. Um, and but the parents who've chosen not to have faced a lot of criticism and a lot of finger pointing and pathologizing when they've just tuned into their own, like they're not just going to make that decision casually. They've done their research, there's reasons why. Same with parents who've chosen to vaccinate their children. So it's, this again, this coming back to this agency where we know when we're dealing with parents who we can clearly say they have their child's best interests at heart, they're going to make these decisions from a considered place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of doctors and pediatricians miss. Like, the decision to not vaccinate your child is like love. That's the parent's love.
Exactly. Yes, it's
Yeah,
not neglect.
it's
Yeah.
not neglect. It may be seen as dangerous for everybody else or whatever, and it's like, and it's a super complex, the
Mhm.
immunizations. But like, I mean, I'm a doctor, and like, I'm not 100% sure that all of the stuff that's out there is not true, so even like, people are getting a lot of information from a lot of different places, and it's really hard to know which one to believe.
Yeah.
And so I think, if what I would love to see the medical community do is say, hey, wow, I think we have a trust shortage.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there, I see the reasons why you aren't trusting this recommendation. It
Hmm.
makes a lot of sense to me why you aren't trusting this. And let's see what happens.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. And then also, like, I trust that there's a movement in our culture that will lead us to the next. I don't want to call it answer exactly, but like, in polio, the days when people were having polio and the vaccine cleared up polio, and
Yeah,
everybody
exactly.
saw clearly their neighbors' kids weren't getting paralyzed.
Yeah,
Obviously, that was a preferred
exactly.
state, and like, we're just not that clear on it right now.
Yeah, and I feel like this, so what we're talking about here is just like allowing in nuance and allowing in different perspectives and allowing in, again, agency, because it's like we've
Mm-hmm.
seen how the polio vaccine, like you said, has worked wonders and has cleared up something awful like polio, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much is eradicated for the most part. And at the same time, there's still huge question marks around it. Can
Mm-hmm.
both those contradictions
Yeah.
coexist? And can there be conversations around it? And I feel like that
Yeah.
is, of course, and I feel like the medical system is an interesting and challenging place to have contradictions coexist because of course
Hmm.
there's like, okay, there are life and death
Hmm.
situations at play a lot of the time. So
Hmm.
we don't have the luxury of having being in this. But when it's not an immediate life and death threat situation, when there's like, okay, a decision that can be made that requires a bit of consideration, some conversation, some dialogue, some time, some and the doctors and medical professions being like, I'm here to advocate for you rather than tell you what to do.
Hmm.
That shift.
For sure. And that feels like a almost like a developmental progression, if you think about like
Yeah.
the way in which we develop as people, like safety, all of the different levels of development or all of the different ways of looking at it. And like, yeah, medicine is not it's sort of like, I don't want to say it's immature in that way, but like it doesn't hold contradictions very well. It
Hmm.
doesn't hold the complexity of these possibly like higher sort of spiritually
Hmm.
uh like themes of where something can actually be both at the same time.
I mean, they absolutely are because
Yeah,
we
yeah.
live in a relative dualistic world. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
so that it's like if you look for evidence of one thing, you'll find it. If you look for the evidence of the other thing, you'll find it.
Yeah, and so in terms of like spiritual development, like if you think of the medical community as a person or like as an entity that has its own developmental trajectory, we've come from like years ago doing, whatever the doctor said, you just did, and
Yeah.
like that was in my view, like kind of like a lower sort of frequency level of development, and
Hmm.
we've kind of evolved into where we are now, and it's
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And especially over the last since COVID, that's really kind of amplified because,
yeah.
and that's caused a lot of all the things that we've seen and all of the polarization that occurred during that time. Um, uh, and like that, I really like that description of this kind of like developmental stages, and that kind of that immature consciousness state can't really hold contradictions and opposites in one space.
Yeah, it's like a 3-year old is very concrete
Yeah.
about things,
Yeah, they're very
and
binary, like
very
good, bad. Yeah.
binary. It's either good or it's bad, and there's nothing in between. And there's like, in a way, the medical system tends in some instances towards that. I mean, there's of course a lot of complexity, but um yeah.
Yeah, but that larger I mean, and this kind of leads me to, and this is totally something that I think about and not something that I'm imposing onto you or to anyone who's listening. But just something that, just an inquiry for me, because a lot of the work that I do is around, decolonial work and confronting empire and the consciousness state of empire and what that even is. And so when I think about and look out at that kind of, at systems and institutions that say this is the only way, that to me is the consciousness state of colonialism and empire, where it's like this is the only way, is very in that it comes from that same stream of like, do you have to do as I say, that authoritarian empire colonial way of being in the world. And
Hmm.
that's what I see not only in the medical system, but other systems and institutions. Um, and I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, maybe before I give my thoughts, could I ask you, like, so if you imagine yourself in a hospital environment and somebody's telling you this is the only way, like
It won't go down well.
clearly.
It won't go down well.
But like what's a way in which this is so hard because it's like putting the responsibility on the individual who's actually being oppressed, right?
Yes, yes, I love
But
that
like
nuanced look at
but
it. Yeah.
like it's true that if you come back to the doctor in a certain way, they don't know how to like hold that because they don't see another way.
Hmm.
Um, what would you like? How? What's the way to like open that door in a way that
Yeah.
doesn't trigger, like, because you're like worried about triggering the doctor, which is like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but it happens all the
Oh
time.
yeah,
And
I've triggered many
I'm
people.
I could totally, I'm sure you have. I would love to see that so much. But yeah, so do you just come with your energy and then you deal with the trigger, or like, because then you, like, even more so you're stigmatized as someone who's like resistant. and
Yes.
and I've heard all the behind the scenes conversations of doctors talking about patients, like you, I guess. um
Problem people.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So your question is like how would I kind of approach that? So if I'm being told like you have to do it this way, you
But
have to
there's a
take,
sense in you that there's another way, or like that way
yeah.
doesn't work for you.
Yeah. So I'll give
Yeah.
you I'll give you like a real world example of something that happened, and I have spoken about it in a different conversation in these YouTube channels with a homeopath. Um, so when I was, I think yeah, early 20s. So I've had like autoimmune issues, which were as I know now, like as a result of early childhood developmental trauma. So early 20s, I started getting some autoimmune expressions. And I went with my mom to the doctor. So this was when I was still in England. Went to the doctor and they were like, they just said, you have to take steroids and you have to be on steroids forever for this.
Hmm.
And both my mom and I uh, were like, no. But we needed to know what the diagnosis is. So thank you. But
Hmm.
no. And uh, and we, sort out other ways, and Ayurveda and homeopathy and other ways. And the issue cleared up. It was actually alopecia, and it cleared up. And it hadn't, and then when it returned years later, I knew what to do. I knew what was causing it. And then again, I had a similar issue, another autoimmune flare up. And I went, this is when I was early 30s, went and same thing. And it was quite distressing what was going on. I had psoriasis on my feet and my legs, and it was as a result of a very traumatic period in my life. And there was no other like, oh, what else has been going on? There was just like, you got to take this steroid cream now forever.
Hmm.
And there was again this clear sense, this clear knowing, like, no, but I need to know what it is. I don't want to self-diagnose.
Hmm.
So I need to know what it is. And thank you for that. And there was no part of me that was second guessing myself.
Hmm.
And they were quite put out by my like refusal
Hmm.
to go along with.
Hmm.
So those are like two, I mean, there've been other smaller, but those have been like very clear times where I've just known in myself. But I feel like not everybody has, trusts that knowing. And I know that, and it was the right thing for me to not take those steroids. And I'm not saying everybody don't take steroids. This is the thing. It's like for
Right.
me and this body
Yeah.
and this nervous system and this constitution and everything that is this individual being, it's not correct.
Hmm. Yeah. So so the way in which you stayed connected with the medical, sort of like, it was useful to you in a way to have like the name of what it
Yeah.
was that was going on. And then
Yeah.
you could then take that information and ask your community, basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and literally that's how I was kind of feeling about it. I had like my little team of
Hmm.
people. I had a chiropractor and a acupuncturist and an Ayurvedic person and with and it was managed and diet and all of these other kind of the
Hmm.
holistic approach.
Right. Yeah. And if those things hadn't gotten you to where you wanted to be, then maybe you would have circled back around to the doctor and
Yeah.
said, okay, let's try a little steroids or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But they
Hmm.
did. And but it what it took from me was a commitment and a willingness to make changes. So like
Hmm.
make changes to my lifestyle, make changes to my diet, make changes to
Hmm.
ways in which I manage stress, all of those things. So it wasn't me just being a passive bystander here, just take this cream, take this pill,
Right.
and then carry on drinking and eating crappy food.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's that to me sounds more like this holistic sort of healing,
Yeah.
that I would want for people rather than just like, okay, slap a cream on it and then just sort of try to put it out of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it takes like a certain amount of, yeah, willingness to, and because it's not easy to make changes, those kinds of changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where we come into our agency. So I think if a doctor had spoken to me in the way of like, well, you could take this cream, or you could do this, but this would mean you having to like make
Mm-hmm.
some drastic changes
Mm-hmm.
in the way that you live.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would have been like, okay, I can make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what was my original thing to you was, wait, what was I
I
asking you?
don't remember. It was about it was
We'll
it
come
was
back to it.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's fine. Same. We'll come back to it. But I think, yeah, so I think what I was trying to get at is how would that look within the medical system? Like, how would that be systemically implemented?
Like bringing other voices in.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that before. Like I had considered like developing a group basically, and you go to the clinic and you see a doctor and there's the nurse and the medical assistant and all that stuff. But what if if you had a team of people who were like sitting there all together and and everybody's seeing you at the same time, and you
Yes.
can be like the person at the center of that is the patient, and you can say like, well, chiropractor, how would you go about this, and doctor, how would you go about this, and like physical therapist, so but I don't that level of like sophistication of coordinating, I've not seen that anywhere.
I've not seen that anywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe some Scandinavian countries have it. I don't know.
Yeah. In some specialty clinics, like if you go to a gastroenterologist, like they'll have a
Oh,
nutritionist
right.
there and they'll have
Yeah.
a case manager. So like there are some teams like that. Like Loma Linda has certain high risk or like patients who have lots of different types of conditions. They may go to one place where you can see like the ear, nose, and throat doctor and the this and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So some of those have been set up, but it's mostly all just like different types of physicians. So um,
Yeah. I mean, and even just from the perspective of um, prescribing pharmaceuticals, it's like, okay, I'm prescribing you this pharmaceutical, and do you want to take it? These are the side effects. And okay, this is how you can also maybe mitigate some of the side effects by changing this in your diet and
mhm,
changing this in like, okay, if you're going to be taking antibiotics, make sure you get enough probiotics after that
mhm,
period of time of taking it. Just that so that we're not just like, here, take this and everything, that's it. So it's like, what is the impact on the whole system? I mean, a lot of the ways in which I talk about this is like how we like regenerative farming. It's the same thing. It's like, you know, regenerative farming is healing soil that has been depleted and degraded through industrial farming. So it's
mhm.
how do we get to that place where the soil isn't degraded? And I don't see our bodies as separate from that. So it's like, okay, take this medication, this pharmaceutical, and also do these other things to help the whole ecosystem thrive.
Yeah. Well, in a way, like the way that um, the medical system has been utilized is sort of like planting a field with all corn,
Yeah, exactly.
for like
Monoculture,
year
yeah.
after year after year. And I think the soil of our culture is actually a
Hmm.
bit depleted on
A
overutilization,
bit.
yeah, on overutilization of the
Yeah.
medical community at the not expense, but like at the exclusion of other ways of addressing these types of concerns.
And do you think for women, especially, so circling back to, how this, your observations around how people are treated, and especially women, um, do you think women, especially, and women's bodies because the another thing I've found, and this is, these is conversations that are taking place, as I said, more in the holistic spaces around health and well-being, and kind of more feminist, holistic health and wellness spaces, but that there is an inherent and just deeply unconscious, for the most part, misogyny within the Western mainstream medical system.
Hmm. Yeah, well,
And you don't have
um,
to, like, you can totally disagree as well.
no, well, I think what I will say is, like my understanding of like the feminine aspect of energy
Hmm.
is that it moves in many different directions, and it moves with
Exactly.
with power. And I don't feel like modern medicine is really supportive to that kind of ebb and flow and like
Hmm.
darkness, and like
Hmm.
that creative like dark space where like anything can come from it.
Yeah.
The medical community wants to say this is the way we're going, and
Hmm.
so I think I believe that there could be a blending of those. There can be room for like, if your doctor could have just said like, oh, you don't want to do the steroids, okay, cool, I can't wait to see what you find, because like I'm not as up to speed on all that other
Yeah.
stuff, like, but like, can I see you back in 3 months and we can see what you're doing and like where you're at, like that would be a way, and that would make room for like your intuitive spark to have space. And I think that happens, for women a lot. They're
Yeah.
in a lot of those situations.
The Your description of this is so, yeah, it's so amazing, that your understanding of the how female and feminine energy works. It's non-linear. It doesn't have these very like straight lines, straight, again, binary approaches. Like the feminine energy occupies the contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, that, and because the system is so set up within this. And again, I just really want to emphasize it's not about destroying the system, it's about evolving it. It's about bringing it, like you said, to this next
Yeah.
level of maturity in its development.
Mm-hmm.
Like how can we evolve what is already here?
Mm-hmm.
And this understanding of female energy and feminine energy, and like how do we incorporate that and blend that,
Yeah.
give a woman her voice through her agency and her intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like a woman, okay, if you have like a good man or whatever, like we could, I guess we'll just say man and woman for right now, but like it's really more feminine and masculine energy, but like welcomes the test of that, like
Yes.
if the medical community could be like, wow, she's testing me, because it's a very masculine environment,
Hmm.
and like, okay, this is just a test to see, and like, but make space for that. I feel like it could be like a really big
Yeah. This is
shift. Yeah.
that, because that test, like seeing it in that way, this as this challenges, and is kind of looking at it more from this sustainable growth oriented, rather than
Hmm.
like someone is challenging me and they are wrong and they need to be shut down.
Right. Yeah, and like maybe maybe it's dangerous at certain times, because there are ways in which that sort of chaotic movement,
Hmm.
it doesn't really get us like exactly where we'd prefer to be. And so there
Yeah.
there is also like, there's the element of like directionality that
Yes.
would come in at
Yeah.
times, but not to overpower the movement,
Exactly. Yeah.
but to
To
like
steward it.
welcome it and be like, I love
Yeah.
that, and
Hmm.
let's try here. How's that
Yeah.
sound?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so, I mean, really what the what you're kind of visioning here is this very, again, that same word, this holistic, blended framework and structure in which to
Hmm.
hold the complexities of a human being.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what's all this about, really. Why are we doing all of this? Like, I think
Hmm.
that gets lost so much. Like, we want to connect.
Yeah.
Like at the root of all of this care is like the reason why we want people to live. I think, like as far as I've gotten with this, right, is like it's because we want to be able to connect. And like, can we bring that more into the like, can we bring it more
Yeah.
into the space?
That
Like
core value, that
that
core
core
shared
value.
value.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing, that we've mentioned and talked about is how like this so from this place of understanding this core value of connection, like what is the how do I want to phrase this? So wait, let me back up. When there's no because that this under there's a lack of this understanding of this core value of connection, there's something missing, it feels, and it's not the appropriate people that are being tended to and centered.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that you've mentioned that before.
Yeah. Well, it what in and I think, I mean, you talk quite a lot about this. I mean, when trauma comes up, and like the hospital is a very traumatic environment. And I think what we're experiencing is like there's a trauma field that points towards something as very important. And so, yeah, when we're like navigating all of these different environments and these decisions that are being made, the, the medical community has a certain trauma field that it's working inside of. That
Hmm.
and when people are traumatized and when they get triggered, they focus inward. And
Yes.
so that happens in a lot of these types of decisions, and especially in childbirth. We've been talking quite a bit about that. There are things that happen suddenly and
Yeah.
tragically, and there's a lot of trauma involved in that, and so that may have the doctor tend to focus more on them,
Hmm.
to avoid experiencing that again. um,
Yes.
and the whole system in a way is actually designed, like a c-section for instance is designed around like avoiding a tragic sudden,
Yeah.
losing a baby suddenly. So yeah, when recommendations are being made or the conversation is being had, I mean, I think an important piece for people to like keep in mind is like, who is at the center of what's being said right now. Is it the doctor and the hospital and that system, or is it actually the baby who we have in front of us?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a simple question that keeps to be answered. It's like who is being centered? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, and it's not to say to negate and the humans who are the doctors and the nurses
Yeah,
and
of course.
um and I mean, as you're speaking to this, I wonder if like, because doctors like yourself and people, people, medical professionals they have to witness a lot of really tragic things. And so is there a space for trauma processing and trauma healing for medical professionals so that that trauma isn't so internalized, so that every decision that's being made isn't being made to avoid a
Mm-hmm.
repeat of that from this bracing place, but more like, okay, what does this situation need where I'm centering the child and centering the mother?
Yeah, I think that there's like a lots of opportunity for that in the medical community. Um, but that sort of work, it takes a lot of energy and time, and yeah,
Hmm.
these are people that often
Don't have.
they're already feeling like they have less of that
Yeah.
than they would prefer. And yeah, I mean, like certainly systems have like therapists
Hmm.
available for free for doctors. I know most universities do that, but yeah, but making it a part of the culture to actually like reach out, because what happens is people become hardened.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in myself.
Yeah, well, you have to in a way to not, because you have to come home and you have your own family and your own life, and you don't want that to seep into that. So you have to kind of compartmentalized to a certain extent.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think about sort of again this what you were talking about, the whole community, if this is coming from like a community
Hmm.
lens and like specifically from like we think about indigenous communities and how it's like, okay, so the doctor is also part of the community and the doctor has just gone through this really traumatic experience witnessing something awful, and like
Hmm.
how can they be held in community, and it doesn't, rather than being this like, okay, now I have to go and have therapy for
Right.
this, where it's
Hmm.
like, oh, it feels like another thing to do, like you say, it's already,
Right.
but how that kind of that trauma disperses when it's held in,
Mm-hmm.
when there's more space for it to move, and that happens in our bodies and in the world. So it's like, again, that doctor being like, okay, you're also part of a community and you belong and you get to have this experience and
Yeah.
you get to be held in this experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm even feeling like just how like it that like I feel some like emotional energy rising when you say that, because it's like just how like not a part of the culture that is, like the way in which I've been what's the right word for it, just taught, I guess, or like modeled, or the ways in which I've just seen how I'm supposed to be, which I think is also part of the system that keeps doctors working,
Hmm.
is the part that says don't look at that stuff,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
keep working, because that's what we do in order to whatever it is that we're after, just keep
Yeah.
working. Yeah.
Just keep working. And so, I mean, I love what you've kind of tracked and named here is that kind of, so because of this, what's being held in this contraction,
Mm-hmm.
that then of course has its own agenda of not experiencing that again. So then
Mm-hmm.
that gets centered rather than
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
the
and
baby.
sometimes thank God that that got centered, because we catch things that would have otherwise resulted
Yeah,
in
yeah,
deaths. And sometimes it's a bit more present than it needs to be. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So again, it's coming back to this, it's not this or that.
Right.
So what does that mean? It means more presence, more discernment,
Yeah.
more being awake and alive to,
Yeah.
rather than like, this is the protocol and we follow it.
Right. Yeah. Openness and
Yeah.
embodiment, presence. Yeah. All of that.
Yeah. Where it's like, okay, I don't, and we all want our like, the left brain wants it's like checkbox list, tick it
Mhm.
off
Yeah.
thing, and just like not have to like relate to a thing, engage with a thing, pay attention, tune in, listen, um, get to know the subtler energies that are at play. Like you, when you were mentioning about the mum who's, when you asked, how are you? And you were able to perceive this something, this settling, this releasing, this movement of energy,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, where you're like, okay, there's something here. Just
Hmm.
asking another human how they are.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, this kind of moving away from this I don't know if that's a word, um, uh, paradigm to like much more like, I'm here to pay attention and listen and relate, and I have medical expertise, and I'm a medical professional, and that's what I'm bringing to
Hmm.
this. But that doesn't mean that I am the dictator
For
in
sure.
this.
For sure. Yeah. And I guess I also want to like encourage people to to continue to bring their voice in that space, you know? Like, yes, I would hope that your doctor would be present and embodied and more available. And like without people continuing to speak up, I'm sorry to say that I've put the onus on, and many times on the person who's actually like marginalized. But like when people do continue to speak up, like for me, that's what I needed in order to hear it.
Mhm.
And it's like I feel a lot of sadness in that reality, but it's just true that like I needed to hear it a lot before it was like, okay, this is actually a person in front of me. It's really, really wild how
Yeah.
easy it is. Um, and probably as a white man too, you know, like, and a doctor and like a third generation doctor, how easy it is to just like dehumanize someone who's sick in front of me.
Hmm.
Which again is part of the system that lives in me that keeps me working for whatever that thing was that we thought we were going to
Hmm.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, like you said, yeah, it's like, okay, the people who are marginalized are the ones who have to speak up. Sadly, that is the situation that we're in, because nothing else is able to see anything differently until those that speaking up happens.
Right. Like you can't make somebody see it, right? Like, and I think yeah, it's so hard, but like keep bringing your humanity, and it's like I mean, and this applies like so generally in our culture right now, you
Oh
know,
my
just
God,
like
yeah. I feel like that the hospital is like a very intense microcosm of all,
mhm,
everything else that's happening. And,
mhm,
just one more thing to name that you spoke to here, that kind of, seeing a sick person or a pregnant person, uh, you know, in front of you is like this pathologizing lens.
mhm,
And that is something that, I talk about a lot in my work. It's that this way in which we pathologize
mhm,
rather than relate.
mhm.
So pathologize, so how can this be fixed?
Right.
Rather than relating, how can this be tended to? How can this, okay, yeah, if someone's dying, having a stroke, that's a
Mhm,
completely different
mhm.
scenario and
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
But if it's, someone's coming because they're unwell, they're sick, they're pregnant. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, because like just maintaining like an embodied sense of humanity, I think would just bring us so far in that, and like meeting as humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tim. I really, no pressure, but hoping that you bring your voice on these
Yeah.
topics to,
Yeah.
and that is my agenda for my
Mm.
agenda for having you on this, like, so more people can hear you talking about this, because you, as you like to say, like white male doctor, third generation doctor, speaking to these things in this way, I think is a necessary voice also in this space, because there are lots of women and women of color and all of these conversations happening within those spaces, which are amplifying, thankfully. And so to bring your voice to it, I feel like it's a really powerful, yeah, powerful thing. And
Yeah.
to really, and I know that it, because you are part of, you work in a hospital. So speaking publicly in this way about these things is probably feeling a little bit activating.
That's okay. I'm here for it, I'm here
Yeah,
for it.
good.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you. And I'll be sharing links to Tim's work as an artist and a musician. It's all in the little description box at the bottom, so you can find out more about Tim and follow him and tune into his music um, and all the different things that you do. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for all you bring to the world, Tim.
Thank you so much. Can I put a plug in really quickly
Yes,
for a
of course.
community piece? It's called About Families Incorporated. It's run by Joanna Whitlow, and it's a super great resource for everything family oriented, and especially newborn babies and everything. So, About
Oh, okay.
Families. Yeah.
About Families. We'll
And
include a link to that
I'll
as
send you
well
the link. Yeah.
in the thing. So About Families Incorporated, that sounds, and I'm going to share that with a friend actually who's just had a baby. So amazing. Thank you,
Awesome.
Tim.
Thank you so much.